Good evening to you, everyone. I'm Tina Shaw. Welcome to tonight's political forum sponsored by WSAV TV and Georgia Southern University. This forum is to have a conversation with candidates running for Chatham County Commission. Ben Singer and I are proud to be the moderators tonight.
And it is a chance to learn more about the candidates running for County Commission as we focus on 5 races: County Commission Chair and Districts 1, 2, 6, and 7. So WSAV is live streaming the event via Zoom. It will be simulcast on WSAV.com and our Facebook page as well. And to our audience tonight, we want to thank you for joining us. So we dedicate this first session to candidates hoping to become the next Chatham County Commission Chairman. They are former Tybee Island Mayor Jason Beutelman and longtime County Commissioner Chester Ellis.
And we want to thank you for participating tonight. Before we begin with the opening statements, I want to lay the law of the land tonight when it comes to the format of our program. Each of you will get 60 seconds for your opening statement. And for your answers to the questions that we have for you tonight, you will have 90 seconds for those questions, and you will have 20 seconds if we need a rebuttal. Now, after all is said and done tonight, you also have your closing statements. Those are limited to 1 minute each. So we want to begin with a flip of a coin tonight to determine who will begin the opening statements. Ben?
Okay. Who's going to be heads?
Okay, heads for Mr. Beutelman and tails for Mr. Ellis.
Coin flip has happened, and it is tails.
Okay, well, we will begin with you, Mr. Chester Ellis, with opening statements tonight. Tell us about yourself and also tell us why you are running for Chatham County Commission Chairman.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of your forum tonight. I'm a devoted husband, father that loved this county. As a lifelong resident and citizen of Chatham County, an educator, a neighborhood president, a pastor, and a commission, I have been a voice for all of citizens in Chatham County. It is time we take action. No more than ever before, changes that place people over politics. People make Chatham County strong. We are stronger because of our diversity. As your chairman, you will have a voice. There will be a voice for women, LGBTQ, minorities, disadvantaged businesses in our local economy. We must address rapid sea rise. We have to have housing for those who can afford it, and that will come in the form of income-based housing. As the current vice chair, I have worked with all 8 municipalities, and I find a way to keep taxes low. I'm ready on day 1. Thank you.
And Mr. Ellis, we thank you. Up next with opening statements tonight, Mr. Jason Beutelman.
Thank you. So I want to thank Tina, you, and Ben for hosting tonight, and thank Georgia Southern, thank all your team at WSAV. I want to thank Chester for, we've had a very cordial, lots of cordial discussions in the past in our forums, and I'm happy and thankful that this has been a very positive campaign. I also want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank everybody who's voted so far. People have waited in line for as long as 7 hours to vote in the early voting already. So thanks for everybody for being engaged in the process. A little bit about myself. I'm a husband to my wife, Jody. We've been married 22 years. We have 3 girls, age 15, 8, and 5. And I've been an educator in the public school system at one school, the same school, Sol C. Johnson High School, since 1999. And I was mayor of my community up until last year for 14 years when I made the decision to not run again so I could seek this seat as chairman. And this seat is as much about issues as it is about one's approach to leadership. And I know we're going to talk a lot about issues tonight, but my approach to leadership is you always listen to others, you collaborate as much as possible. Whenever something good happens, you use the word we and don't take personal credit for it. Always tell the truth, always be honest, and do what I always tell my kids when they wake up every morning is to always be nice. And if you're kind and you're compassionate in the way that you lead, good things are going to happen in your community. And I want to bring that approach to leadership to the county.
Okay, thank you very much for those opening statements tonight. Ben?
All right, Tina, thank you. Here's the first question tonight. Savannah's mayor was credited with showing leadership during the early days of the COVID-19 crisis, while the current county commission chair was conspicuously silent, waiting another month to institute a completely unenforced mask mandate. Do you believe this was sufficient action? If conditions continue as they are now, will you continue the mask mandate, and do you intend to start enforcing it? And we will start with Mr. Beutelman.
Sure. And I don't want to be critical of the current chairman. I think Chairman Scott has done a very good job on many, many issues. My approach is different. I would have worked at the very outset of this situation to try to come up with a more an approach that brought everybody together, so that, you know, if you went to the Walmart on the south side, and you might not really know if you're within the city limits and you're in unincorporated Chatham County, that the same protocols and you know, the whole thing with the mask, all of those issues were handled consistently. And that did not happen at the outset of this situation. I had to deal with two major hurricanes Matthew and Irma. And I felt very strongly, having gone through that process, that the person who's the chairman of the county commission must collaborate with the other 8 mayors and with the other nonprofits and other governmental entities in the county to make sure that we're all speaking with one voice. And that needs to happen with this situation. And I think that the fact that the mayor of Savannah got out front, which is a testament to his leadership, and yet the other municipalities were all kind of doing their own thing, and the county and unincorporated was doing its own thing, was a problem. And I think we should have all worked together on one common approach to this situation.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis.
Yes. First of all, you must understand that the governor's orders coming out of Atlanta were different for the county and the chairman of the county than it was for the municipalities. There was a phone call meeting of all the mayors and the chairman, and the governor gave the municipality mayors some advantage that he did not give the chairman. So the chairman then could formed an emergency order that allowed each municipality to take into their own hands what was going for their jurisdiction. And so there was collaboration, and there was where they were all walking together on the same page. And so it wasn't until further on when the governor allowed the chairman to declare the whole county under a different emergency order, and therefore that's when the mask ordinance was put in place for the entire county.
Thank you, gentlemen. Up next, this question is directed to both of you. There have been calls around the country to defund the police departments. Most of these calls are, well, not really about defunding the police, but about reprioritizing funding. For example, more spending on mental health and homelessness, as opposed to militarization of police forces. So where do you stand on the county increasing, decreasing, or reprioritizing spending on the county police department? Mr. Ellis?
Let me first say, so that we understand and know what the story is. When I first joined the county commission, the lands were already drawn in the sand as to the demerger of the county force and the city force. The city of Savannah put in stipulations that the county just could not handle because it put unincorporated Chatham County at a disadvantage. So what we did was we filled in the gap. I am never for defunding the police because that is something we don't have to do, but we can step up and do together with all municipalities coming together to fund and to operate in those other areas that people are concerned about.
And Mr. Beutelman, your thoughts?
Sure. So I would echo what Commissioner Ellis said. I don't think that defunding the police is a wise move. If anything, the police officers themselves deserve to have more, higher pay. That's been a big challenge if you speak to the sheriff or if you speak to other chiefs of police in the county, whether it's Metro Police or, the Savannah Police, the county police, the municipalities police, Savannah State Police, et cetera. It's very hard to find good officers. And if you don't have good officers, you might, run into problems. That's something we need to take into consideration. I don't believe that we need to, militarize the police, but I do think that officer pay is a big issue, and we need to make sure we have pay scales that allow for our chiefs to recruit and train some high quality officers. So that's one issue. The second thing is I think it's important that we do work together to make sure that our police departments in all of the jurisdictions all across the county are following proper protocol, proper procedures, that there's procedures in place and protocol in place to make sure, for example, you don't hire officers from outside of the county who have had issues in the past. You don't want to rehire them, bring them in here, and they create problems in our community. There are a number of things that we can do across jurisdictional lines to make sure that Savannah doesn't become what happened in Minneapolis with George Floyd. We do not need that to happen in our community. We need to maintain good relationships between our officers and our community.
Thank you very much.
Question number 3. While the city of Savannah allocated millions to address affordable housing in the recent SPLOST referendum, the largest proportion of Chatham County's homeless population lives not in the city of Savannah, but in the county. Yet the county commission did not allocate any SPLOST funds for the homeless. What do you propose that the commission should do to meet the needs of our nearly 5,000 homeless citizens, including the more than 1,000 children? And we'll start with Mr. Beutelman.
Sure. I mean, I see it in my job as an educator. I've worked with students who didn't have a place to live. It's a problem here. Wages have been relatively stagnant, yet housing prices have gone up, rents have gone up. So that's definitely an issue we need to address. We actually had a forum last night and had this discussion. And my argument is that the county needs to step up in the same way that the city of Savannah has stepped up. For a long time, I think that most governments have depended upon the federal government to provide affordable housing for their communities, but the demand is outstripping the supply in terms of the federally subsidized housing here. So Savannah, to its credit, stepped up and put $10 million in SPLOST to deal with this issue. And I think the county needs to step up as well. The city of Savannah has some wonderful staff that has worked on this for a long time, and they put in place some great programs. The average rent for a 3-bedroom apartment in Savannah is $1,300, and you have to make $54,000 to be able to afford that and still have enough for food and transportation and all the other things. Well, a lot of people in our community, we have a 17.3% poverty rate. A lot of people in our community simply cannot afford that. So local government has to step up. Savannah's done it, and I think the county should do so as well.
Thank you. Mr. Ellis?
Yes, let us understand. When we say the county needs to step up, we need to understand what the county did in the beginning. The county put $50,000 into the homeless fund. And when you put it in the SPLOST, and it is in SPLOST 7, we just started to collect those monies in SPLOST 7 on October 1st. That money won't be available to the city for 6 years. All right. So when you're looking at what the county has put into its budget, as well as the money it has given to the homeless here, we are above what the city of Savannah is doing. We are taking steps to eradicate homelessness. And one way we are doing that is to bring in more jobs, to bring in higher paying jobs, to work, as I said last night, on income-based housing rather than affordable housing, because affordable housing leaves people out if they don't make $35,000 a year. So in order for us to attack the poverty rate here, there are 2 things we must do. We must step up our educational system, as well as we must step up our workforce training so that we are workforce ready for those who need those jobs. And the next 2 years, 21 to 23, will be a crucial year in getting Chatham Countyans ready for workforce development.
Thank you.
And moving on now to the next question. The County Commission has committed to spending $40 million on a new emergency and communication center. That is if SPLOST revenue does not meet projections. Well, the Commission has said that the authority to determine which projects should be prioritized. if this does happen. Should this be a major priority, or are there other projects that you'd actually opt to fund first?
Tina, who should go first? Sorry.
Okay, you go first. Mr. Beutelman, you're up.
You were breaking up there a little bit. I'm sorry. You were referring to the new 911 center?
Yes, let me rephrase this question for you, or repeat it for you, just in case you did not hear me clearly. The County Commission has committed to spending $40 million. This is on a new emergency and communication center. Now, if SPLOST revenue does not meet projections, the Commission has the authority to determine which projects should be prioritized. So should this be a major priority in your opinion, or are there other projects that you would actually opt to funding in the beginning?
No, I think that government's first responsibility is to provide for the safety of the people who live here and the people who visit here. So I absolutely think we need to prioritize that. One of the things that facility will provide is an upgraded 911 emergency call center. I had visited the county's emergency 911 call center in the cities, and it is a problem, and it's something that we need to address. Absolutely. We need to make sure we have technology so when somebody calls on the cell phone, they can pinpoint exactly where that person is calling from, so that they can meet the needs of that individual. We actually on Tybee have had our own 911 call center for a long, long time because we got frustrated with some of the issues at the county and the city of Savannah level. So we set up our own, and it's worked very well. So the answer to your question is I think that should be a priority, and other things would go away before that funding for that particular item in the budget would go away if SPLOST proceeds come in slower or lower than expected.
And Mr. Ellis, your thoughts?
The $40 million allocated for the new emergency communications and communication system is already in place. The where we are right now is allocating the RFP to the contractor. We have moved it because we see that the present center we use for disaster and for the emergency out on Carl Griffin Drive is inadequate to meet the needs of this community. And so we are building a brand new one. And that does not depend on whether we are collecting the funds or not. The funds are there already. The $40 million have been allocated. So very soon, you should see the technology as well as a building that is able to withstand up into a Category 5 hurricane. At present, if we get a Category 3, we must evacuate from Carl Griffin Drive and go to Statesboro. With the new emergency center coming on place, we will be able to stay in that center up until a Category 5, and that's going to be built at the airport, is where it's coming into being. The technology and the social media and all that will be upgraded. All of that has been in the plans, and those plans are going on as we speak.
All right, Mr. Ellis, thank you. Ben?
Question number 5. Now, recently the County Commission had discussed mandating county residents pay a trash service fee to a private company and an annual fee for protection from Chatham fire, which are not services that the county currently provides for its citizens. Would you support either of these mandates? Why or why not? And we'll start with Mr. Ellis.
What we have done, Ben, is that we have sent the staff back to the citizens because we did the report that they brought in did not have citizens' involvement. So therefore, we have not come up with anything about the trash or about the subscription to fire, because we wanted to know what formula they were using to calculate how they were charging people, because there were folks who had the same size property but were getting charged differently. Some who had smaller dwellings were paying more than some who had larger dwellings. And so we sent the staff back to bring back that information. That is in the works right now. That is a report that should be coming back to us. When it comes back to us, then we will have necessary workshops, and then we will have forums and town hall meetings with the citizens in the unincorporated areas.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Beutelman?
So on the dry trash, I would say no. I don't think that's something that should be mandated because a lot of people can take care of that themselves. I understand the issue, and it is a complex one, but I would say no to that. On the fire subscription fee, the issue is that roughly 65% of the people who live in unincorporated Chatham pay the subscription fee to Chatham Fire Services, and a lot of people don't. I think the best approach to start with is an educational an outreach program to make sure people understand that if they don't pay that fee and they have a fire at their home, they're going to get a pretty hefty bill from Chatham Fire Services, which is a separate entity from the county to address that issue. So I think that's the best approach to start with is to make it so that we have an outreach program to make sure people understand that. It's not fair to the 65% of the people who are paying it because they then have fewer services. They have less fire department personnel and emergency personnel coming to them because other people are not paying that subscription fee. And another way to address that issue is I think if we can use SPLOST dollars to make sure that the SPLOST dollars go to fund capital needs that the fire department has for the county. We do that on Tybee. I know that they do that in other municipalities. And just because it's a separate entity, I think there's a way around that to make that happen. And that would help deal with the issue of fire protection services that we have in the unincorporated part of our county.
Thank you.
May I say, Tina, concerning the fire subscription, I have 87 emails right now from citizens that we have asked to give us their input. And so what is happening now is everything that Mr. Beutelman is talking about is already on the table. It's already happening in Chatham County now. We will not come to a conclusion until we have had citizens' input, the fire service input, the commissioner's input, and anyone else who wants to have a conversation about that issue. And the same thing is with the trash.
Mr. Beutelman, do you want to respond to that?
No, I agree. I don't intend on anything that I said to be critical of the county. I think that they are taking on two pretty difficult issues. There's no simple answer to these two issues. That was just my opinion about how we could approach it if I was the chairman.
All right, Mr. Beutelman, this next question is directed to you. As mayor of Tybee Island, you oversaw the council on very controversial policies, and one in particular, it comes up every year. It's related to Orange Crush, the longstanding traditional spring break celebration for predominantly African-American college students. Well, many people have praised Tybee's handling of the event and its focus on public safety as well during the event, while others have criticized Tybee's racist, what they call racist and discriminatory practices. Now, this is coming from others out there, certainly not from the words of my mouth, but these are people who do criticize Tybee Island for those practices. We want to know tonight, and the viewers out there want to know, if you are named as County Commission Chairman, what are some of the things that you can do, or how can we trust you on sensitive issues related to African Americans?
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm glad you asked that question. That's a great question. So a couple things on that. So first off, every year, we have this event called Orange Crush. It's been going on for a long, long time before I was mayor. Every year I go out there and talk to the kids and interact with the police officers and make sure everything's going well and try to make sure that the young people are welcomed out here. And every year I notice that there are not just college age kids, but there's high school kids too. And the reason I know that is because they're in my classroom. So I teach some of these kids. So I feel like first and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, my obligation as an elected official is to protect the people who live in my community and who visit my community. So I know that one day my daughter is going to go off to go on spring break. Whether I like that or not, she's going to do it. And I would hope that the officials in that community would put her safety before anything else. So when we found out that Orange Crush was happening and it was a lot of young people without any organized activities, we reached out to Savannah Police, Chatham County Police, before that Metro Police, Savannah State Police, the Sheriff's Department, to see if we could get some support and some help. And they came out and they were trained we reached out to the Obama Justice Department to make sure that they trained the officers, to make sure that they were following all the correct procedures and weren't treating anybody in a discriminatory manner. So that's one thing. We've just got to keep people safe. I felt I had an obligation to the parents of those young people to make sure that they were safe. And that event had some issues in the past. One young man was shot and killed, unfortunately, and that's the last thing that we needed to happen, was for some family to go through that tragedy. And the second thing I want to mention is my city council, I disagreed with them. They put in a policy a couple years ago whereby they were only going to restrict alcohol consumption on the beach during the times of those when we expected Orange Crush to happen, which is usually about late April. And I disagreed with that vehemently. And ultimately, we reached out voluntarily to the Justice Department to come down and have a mediation, essentially, between the Tybee MLK group and the folks who were, some of whom were more supportive of that policy of restricting alcohol only on Orange Crush. And out of that came an agreement that the City Council voted on unanimously, which I totally support, which is we would have the same policies in place for Orange Crush as we would have on any other high volume event, weekend, 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day, et cetera. So I understand the concerns, but some of the policies that some people disagreed with, I disagreed with too, and I spoke up as mayor. But as mayor in my community, I could only break a tie if it came to a tie. I could only use my bully pulpit as much as I possibly could. So I'd love to have more time on this, but I know I'm restricted to 90 seconds and I've already exceeded it. But bottom line is, I understand those concerns. I get that 100%, and I've tried as much as I can to explain what I just had the opportunity to explain to you. So I really appreciate, Tina, you asking me that question.
Thank you.
Now, this question for Commissioner Ellis.
Am I going to respond to that?
You're going to get a different question, sir, actually. This is about your experience as an elected official being limited to one term as a district representative. How do you envision your role as the leader of the commission being different from your experience as one of the 9 commissioners?
I missed the first part of your question.
The question is that your experience as an elected official is limited to one term as a district representative. So how do you envision your role as the leader of the commission being different from your experience as one of the commissioners?
Well, I'm not limited to one term. Then Dr. Priscilla Thomas, who she served 6 terms as the county rep for District 8, which I served this one past term for, and moving to the and moving now to running for the chairman. But let me say this now. I want to get back to the Orange Crush and those things that happen. And I'm listening to what Jason says, and what I did not hear him say was with the organizers of the event that he tried to organize the event just like they do with the Beach Bum parade. And so when you have the organizer arrested for trying to do those things he said, trying to organize it, have constructive things going on, that's why Tybee failed in that. But we should never, under no circumstance, should we ever deny any citizens of Chatham County or any visitor to Chatham County access to public property. And therefore, that's where the problem comes in.
Okay, Mr. Beutelman,
can I respond to that?
Yep. Absolutely.
So he's referring to, there was an organizer. When he says organizer, we reached out. I mean, I personally made phone calls to individuals who were promoting this on social media to urge them to try to come in and get a permit, just like everybody else did when they had events out here on Tybee. So when that young man was arrested, it's unfortunate. He wasn't arrested because he wasn't able to access the beach. He was arrested because he was at a private home and was throwing a huge party that was it was not approved by the homeowner from whom he rented the house from. So that was, that was nothing about, restricting access to the beach. Tybee has a history of restricting African Americans' access to the beach. A long, long time ago, Edna Jackson and others were actually arrested on Tybee because they wanted to swim in the beach. It was called a wade-in. And I made a point of when we knocked down our jail on Tybee to build a new police station, to get one of the bricks from that jail, bring it to City Council at Savannah, frame it up real nice, and present it to Mayor Jackson and tell her how sorry our community was for what happened to her. So that the past Tybee, I was very cognizant of that. And that's why I was so frustrated when my city council put into place restrictions that only applied to Orange Crush, because I viewed that as having the potential of being viewed by some as being discriminatory. And that's the last thing that our community needed while I was mayor, to be viewed as discriminatory. I didn't want to do that. I didn't accept that. And that's why we created that process by which we came up with some protocols to deal with not only Orange Crush events, but other events as well. Bottom line, Chester, is I just wanted to keep people safe. And I had an obligation to the parents of those kids who were out there to keep them safe to the best of my ability. And I'm willing to take criticism for that, but I'd rather be criticized for that than to have had something tragic happen to a young person under my watch on Tybee.
Well, that means that you should have had inclusion, and you claim that you are an inclusioner. And so you did not have those included into the administration of it. Instead, you call in the authorities to handle a situation that created a problem. Under my administration, everybody will be welcome, and we will work from day one to plan every event. We do it for St. Patrick's Day. We do it with Beach Bum. We could have done it with Orange Crush. And you have to wear that badge.
So let me,
we need to
can
move
I
on from this
respond
topic.
to one?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you let him respond to this, and then we'll move on to the next question.
Commissioner, I appreciate that. And as I said, I'm really going to keep my responses positive. But I reached out to the head of the NAACP, who happened to be the chairman of the county commission, to help with that. I sat in Edna Jackson's office waiting for him to show up to a scheduled meeting. He didn't come. I mean, I did what I could. I reached out to people. I invited a lot of the pastors and leaders in the religious community to come to Tybee. A lot of them did show up and came out, and we met at the pier and talked about how could we do this better. So I did everything I could, and was actually criticized for it by a lot of my constituents for not trying to stop it from happening, which I was not going to do.
Mr. Beutelman, thank you. Mr. Ellis, this is the question we're looking for you to answer. So we're basically just wanting you to compare what you think is, what's going to be different from your being a representative to now being the head of the 9 commissioners.
As the chairman, my job as chairman will be a facilitator, and the facilitator brings people together. All of the mayors, all of the elected officials, whether we are talking about in any one of the municipalities, bringing us together to bring forth a stronger plan so that we have just one Chatham, and that Chatham includes everyone. I have been working with the county even before I was a commissioner on the county's blueprint. The blueprint is in place, but the second phase of the blueprint is the master plan. We cannot do the master plan without everyone's input, because I don't care where you live in Chatham County, it floods. And so that's one of the major issues that we must attend to, especially with the environment and how we have handled the rising of the sea. We've got to put in a plan that includes everybody. Everyone must be at the table.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Thank you both for joining us tonight. Before we leave, I want to have the two of you to share your closing statements tonight. And you have 1 minute, exactly 1 minute. I have a timer sitting next to me, and he keeps giving me the eye. But definitely, let's start with you, Mr. Beutelman. 1 minute on closing statements tonight.
Sure. So I believe very strongly that local government can get bogged down if you run into disagreements about issues that sometimes are divided along partisan lines. I'm a big believer in the fact that 90% of the issues that we face, regardless of what side of the political aisle you fall on, we all agree on. We need to address affordable housing. We need to address workforce development. We want to do good things like the wonderful Tide to Town plan. I'm a big proponent of that. We want to make recreation better. We want to make public safety better. All of these things that we agree on, and what we can't allow happen, and what I worked very hard successfully to not allow to happen in my community, was for those 10% of the issues that we disagreed on to bog down progress on the 90% of the things that we did agree on, because that sometimes can happen in local government. And the second thing I want to close with is I think it's really, really important that we collaborate. The very reason I'm running for this seat is because I believe very strongly that we're not going to move the needle on a lot of these problems we've had in our community for a long time unless the city of Savannah and Chatham County and the other 7 municipalities and our nonprofits and our business community and our educational system unless we're working together as a group to solve those problems. And I saw with the breakdown.
Thank you, Mr. Beutelman. I'm sorry to have to cut you off.
No, that's okay, Tina.
But
Thank you.
You're running over. We appreciate it. We have another session coming up. Mr. Ellis, your closing statement?
Let me first thank Tina and Ben and WSAV, as well as Georgia Southern, for inviting us to have this dialogue tonight. I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of this platform. Let me say to all of the citizens who are listening in that chesterforchatham.com, where you can find more information about me and about my campaign. My key platform issues are a stronger economy, keeping taxes low, which we have championed throughout my time on the county commission, keeping the public safe, diversity and inclusion of all citizens, and most of all, the environment and the disaster protection. As chairman, I will make sure that our essential services are never compromised, that citizens get what they pay for, and that we all are a part. Together we stand, divided we fall. I'm proven that I'm a leader. Let's work together to make Chatham strong. Thank you and have a good night.
All right. Mr. Ellis and Mr. Beutelman, thank you so much for participating in tonight's forum. And we thank our viewers on WSAV.com and also those of you watching on WSAV's Facebook page. Right now, we're going to take a quick break and go to the waiting room and check on our participants for the next session. So we hope you'll stick around with us as this forum will continue momentarily.